All right. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank the CFE group for setting this up and for recognizing that special education is an especially hot topic right now, given the remote learning, given the confusion around it, and we really, really appreciate this forum to discuss ideas and what the heck are we doing. So I am also, as was said, a CPS teacher. I am going through this whole remote learning, debacle with you guys, and I think we have a lot that we can learn from each other. I am going to share, let's see. I am going to share my screen with you guys so you can just kind of follow along with a general presentation I'm going to give up front. And then I really do want to spend a bulk of the time just hearing from you guys, questions, ideas, help us to be able to share what's working and what's not working out there. So let me go ahead and try and share this screen. Let me start from the beginning. All right, can everybody see this? Yes? Okay, I think I'm seeing yeses. All right, and I can still see the chat. So if you guys want to be asking questions or putting ideas into the chat, please go ahead and keep that going. So we're going to be talking today about what distance learning looks like for our students with special needs. This is geared mostly towards CPS, but it's also bigger for the state of Illinois and the nation in general. So before, let's see, just a quick overview of what I want to do. I want to get a few introductions, get an idea of who is in our chat. I'm going to give you the kind of broad layout of what's been happening over the past few weeks, because things are changing daily, as most of us know, and kind of give that timeline, and then talk about some of the most recent developments that have happened this week. This week has been a big week for special ed, so it's actually really fortuitous that we are having this discussion today, given everything that's been changing. And then I want to jump into what does remote learning look like for special education. I want to talk about our inclusion or co-teaching services, resource classrooms, cluster for those folks that are working in low incidence disability classrooms, talking about what does related service providers, all of our clinicians, what is that looking like? That is something else that has been up in the air a lot. And then talking about parent and family support, as well as for our special educators, talking a little bit more in depth about what should we be doing about writing IEPs, writing goals, progress monitoring, doing those re-evals, doing initials. We're getting guidance in little snips and pieces, and so it can be very, very confusing, and it's very, very hard to keep up, so we want to touch on all those things. But before we go any further, in the chat, oh, thank you, someone was giving me some ideas. Okay, in the chat, let's see, could you go ahead and just share whatever you're comfortable sharing, just your name, your connection to special education. If you're a teacher, a parent, a clinician, case manager, administrator, if you're comfortable sharing your school, and the grades that you teach or your kids are in, anything that kind of just to get an idea of who all is out there today, just go ahead and drop that into the chat. And we'll see who all is here. Great. Oh, a hospital teacher, wonderful. Good, a lot of CPS teachers I see, good. Excellent. Oh, someone here's from Meyer, another Montessori, very nice. Good. All right, good. We have a kind of a mix of some early childhood. We've got some high school folks. Excellent. Okay, so you guys can keep doing that. I'm going to move on. All right, now, just a quick overview of what's been going on. I'm sure those of you in CPS have been following this very closely. As we know, it started out with remote learning beginning on March 18th, and those were called Act of God days at that point. So special ed was really like, we didn't have any clear guidance. We had about 2 weeks of that, then the remote, and then we had a week of spring break, and finally official remote learning in Illinois rolled out on the 13th. And as we know, let's see, we have gotten very few directives. A big piece of that is that the federal folks, DeVos and the Department of Education, have not been giving out tons of clear guidance on what to do around following IDEA guidelines and timelines. We know that ISB's guidance was also very vague because of this, and it seemed like ISB and CPS were really just waiting to see you know, what the state and what the federal government was going to do about IDEA and whether or not we need to comply, what's going to happen. So basically that's led to a lot of confusion, misinformation. We're hearing different networks getting different information, different DRs or the district representatives that are the network SPED people have been giving out very, very different directives to different networks in the city. Clinicians have been getting very confusing directives, as have our case managers. There's been a lot of issues around privacy and confidentiality concerns. We were told initially no one can do one-on-one services with kids. Then we were told that psychologists, social workers, and counselors are allowed to do one-on-one services, but not the OT, PT, speech, those and special educators. And now this guidance also, we've gotten new guidance this past week saying, yes, actually, OT, PT, speech can do one-on-one, but there's a lot of questions around the licensure. There's a lot of questions around, you know, what are the legal ramifications of all of these? So a lot of it is still up in the air, and that's why it's been so confusing. And just so people know, the CTU, we have a standing special ed joint committee, and that is kind of our strategic bargaining unit that continues to bargain in between contracts. So we have been meeting with CPS, with ISB on a weekly basis. We've also been meeting with parent and advocacy groups just to keep up with everything as much best we can. But I'm going to be honest when I say that we have not been totally kept in the loop when it comes to many of the directives coming out. We are not always told. For example, the directives that came out this week, I'm going to speak on in just a second. The directives that came out this week, many of them we were not a part of. We did not okay with the district, and they kind of did this on their own. And yes, some people are asking, I can definitely email this presentation to the CFE leaders, and they can, I'm assuming, email it out to folks.
Sorry, just real quick. For all of our community chats, we will have the recording of today's presentation and the presentation itself, and any resources that are shared will be available on our website. So we have a resource roundup page, and it'll be available via that form.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so those of us in CPS know that this week has been a big week. In the afternoon of Monday, the 27th, DeVos finally sent out some directives around IDEA, and the directive basically was follow IDEA as written. There's not going to be any waivers sent out except for some very specific directives around child fine for like the 3 and under crowd. But so otherwise, we are basically on the hook to make sure that timelines are still being followed to some degree. Immediately the next morning, CPS sent out something like a 21-page document, and we had a lot of concerns about some of the stuff that was in there. Some of the things we had discussed with CPS in advance. We had a lot of questions around what should a re-eval look like? What do we do when we don't have enough data? When the clinicians have not been able to gather the correct assessments? You know, what do we do when we can't do progress monitoring? We had a lot of questions. What should our SICAs and our paraprofessionals be doing with our students? So there was a lot of questions. Some of it was addressed, and I'm going to get to that hopefully in a second, but a lot of it was not. And then they rolled out this new idea that we had never heard about, that they wanted us to create remote learning plans for every single student with IEPs and 504s in the entire district. You know, we have a lot of problems with that. We are going to be fighting this. We don't think that that's a very good use of our time. I think that the resources they give could be resources, but the idea that every single child must have these in place is a mandate that will just be too impossible to implement. And this is a little clip that was in the packet that was sent to case managers this past week. And again, this is the plan that ODLSS sent out, that CPS sent out to everyone. They obviously going forward, they have very different time because we're not in a normal 7-hour school day. We have very different time expectations for our kids that is going to impact what their services look like. We know that we can't implement services as they're written in the IEPs. And they're talking like for pre-K, the ISB recommendations were only 60 minutes a day of some kind of instruction for our little ones, 90 minutes for the K2, 120 minutes for 3 to 5, 180 for 6 to 8, and then 270 for grades 9 to 12. So obviously, if you have a child that has an all-day separate class or is in a cluster program, they're not going to be getting those minutes. So we have been adjusting what services look like, and again, and not been getting super clear guidance on what that means and what it should look like. Whoops, actually, so just one thing, we are very concerned about these plans, as I said before, these remote learning plans for every child. We do not want our members and our staff to be drowning in bureaucracy. For those of you that were working in CPS in 2016, 2017, you may remember when they rolled out the para justification form. It was just a huge amount of work, and it was actually deemed illegal because it was delaying and denying services because it was such a bureaucratic hurdle. And it feels a little bit like that. What we don't want to happen is to take time away from our time with students, giving direct instruction, giving whatever supports that families need. We don't want to be doing paperwork when we should be working with kids. So some other recent developments real quick. They did give some more guidelines on re-evals and initials. Here's the big things for people to know about that. If your clinicians especially and your IEP team was not able to, my phone's ringing, sorry. If they were not able to collect all of the necessary data and testing that needs to be done in order to do a quality re-eval and initial, then you do not need to go ahead with the re-eval, but you do need to document. You need to document, especially, this is especially important for the initials, that you need to document what exactly the barriers were and what still needs to be done. The thing that we've talked with CPS a lot about, especially with initials, is that we don't want to just say, no, this child didn't qualify because we don't have data, and then they fall through the cracks and we never revisit it when we reopen school. So that's something we did not want to happen, and we still don't have total clarity over how to go about this and how to document, but so far we are being told to write in the notes page, to keep track in the events section of SSM, and to just be, even when we're writing IEPs, I know I've been writing IEPs and it's extremely difficult to do when we don't have access to our kids in the same way, when we can't see them face to face. So when I've been writing my IEPs, I've been writing what I have and then putting very clearly, I would still like to collect da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It is the recommendation when we reopen school that we do these data collections. In some cases, we will be doing revisions when we get back to school. And that's the number one thing that they tell us, is that you need to be making good faith efforts and then document that you're making those efforts. So let's see, what else? We still have unclear guidance when it comes to our related service providers, our social workers, or speech paths. We've been getting little trickles of information. ODLSS was saying that they had told everyone exactly what they're allowed to do, and we were telling them, no, the supervisors have not been telling people what they're allowed to do. In fact, they've been telling people not to give services because we don't know yet. So there was a lot of miscommunication around that. They are saying now that all of our clinicians are okayed to do some type of one-on-one work with kids, but again, this is what they've sent out as of, I think, yesterday, right? For speech, OT, and PT. But we still need clarification, and we're still pushing them to get exactly in writing what we are allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, because we want to make sure people are protected. We don't want anyone worried about lawsuits or losing their licensures, anything like that. So there's still a lot of questions around that. And just real quick, there's still a lot of questions around confidentiality concerns in general. We really do want the district to put out a general just informed consent for our parents and guardians. So we just want them to be aware of what the privacy concerns are in this new remote learning. You know, if you're getting services and somebody's brother pops in, or someone screenshots something, or if someone, we just want to make sure parents are aware of what the different privacy concerns are, especially when giving confidential services. So we haven't gotten response yet from the district on that. All right, let me see. And just as a reminder that we are all, you know, building this plane as we go. We're building the plane as we try to fly it, and it is a mess and it's confusing, and we don't always have the answers. But I want to go into the SPED services, what those look like, and then, like I said, open it up to you guys for your questions and your ideas of what's working and not working in your situations. We know that there's been a lot of variation across the district. People are figuring this out in their own way because we have not gotten clear directives. We've had a lot of issues around tech and connectivity issues. So we know that internet access is a big issue for a lot of our kids. We've been working very hard to get all our children appropriate technology. It is still not done yet. We know just general equity issues that already existed in our district are really exacerbated and amplified during this time, that kids who are responsible for watching their younger siblings, or parents that are working and not able to help their children during remote learning. You know, we know all of these issues are exacerbated. We talked a little bit before about holding IPs, reevals, and initials. And just a reminder, we are expected to go forward when possible with all of our meetings, and with the understanding that we need to document what we were able to do and document what we still think we need. And if we cannot go forward, we need to document that. And that's especially true for reevals and initials when we don't have the clinician reports done. You can't go forward when you don't have that information. We are very concerned about the burden on parents, especially for our kids that have more significant disabilities. We know as educators and as folks that work with kids with disabilities that it is a very specialized skill. We don't expect our parents to have those skills. But we are working with parents to support them in whatever ways make sense for their situation and their family circumstances. There's been a lot of questions around co-teaching. I've seen a lot of really creative models of how people are breaking this up, and I would love to hear from you all of how you guys are doing this in your rooms. A lot of people are sharing Google Classrooms. They're sharing the work that's done. So some people will, the gen ed teacher will put up a language assignment, and then the SPED teacher will do a math assignment, or that people are breaking it up in very creative, interesting ways. So that maybe the SPED teacher does the read alouds every day and does some social emotional work while the gen ed teacher does something else. So it's you guys are all making this up, and it's been very exciting to see people's creativity around this, but we also, I know, could use ideas. I know I could. There's been a lot of concerns around the cluster for our low incidence kids. This is an extremely difficult situation. We know that many of our students with low incidence disabilities don't, really respond to working with a computer screen, or, like they're not going to be typing up stuff in Google Slides or whatever it is. So we really need to talk, and I'm going to let folks that are in the cluster situations maybe share what they've been doing and how they've been reaching those kids. RSP issues, as we talked about already, or, I see a lot of people doing creative stuff around this. I know I've invited all of my RSPs into my Google Classroom. They come to our Peace Circle we have weekly. They upload ideas and activities for the kids through that, and that's been successful, but I know other folks are trying some other ways to get to kids. And again, what are you guys doing that is working, what is not working? We also have had not a ton of support and guidance on what paraprofessional services look like during this time. I know the paraprofessionals I work with have been reaching out directly to families, setting up one-on-one calls, and just sitting on the computer with the kids and just having the kids read to them, or just asking the kids how their day day is going, having check-ins. And then there's still a lot of questions around grading and ESY. As far as I've heard, I have not heard anything about what's happening with ESY. We know down the line that there's likely going to be a lot of compensatory services that are needed after this crisis is over, and ESI will be one piece of that. But we really don't have that many, we don't have that much information. CPS did release their grading guidelines yesterday, which we all should have gotten, those of us that are CPS employees should have gotten in our emails, and parents would have, I think, also gotten something. And the grading guideline is still a little bit unclear, and to me seems still like there's inequity built into it, that kids that don't have internet access or kids that for whatever reason are not able to complete assignments will be given the option of a pass or no credit, but they're still talking about having to make up that credit through summer school, which seems like we are penalizing kids that don't have access. So those are some more concerns. Anyway, let me just share a little bit about what I'm doing in my room, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys. This is one of my little second graders who mom was saying that they were having a really hard time reading and getting any work done. So we said, okay, today's assignment is you get to build a reading fort. And so this is his fort that he built, and he got really excited about reading, and a bunch of the other kids participated in this too and sent in pictures, and it was super cute. And again, some stuff that we've been talking about, I know I got some questions in advance about some of these things. When it comes to special ed, remote learning, how are you guys doing small group instruction? I know some folks are doing live instruction. How is that working? What are the pros and cons of that? For me, I've been doing pre-recorded lessons that I am like targeting interventions to certain kids and then sharing it out with kids also in the gen ed rooms that may benefit from that. So that's, I do co-teaching in my job title. So also things to think about, what kind of accommodations and modifications. I know many teachers are modifying assignments, maybe cutting down on assignments, giving alternative assignments. What are you guys doing to kind of meet those accommodations, modifications in your classrooms? I'd like to hear a lot more information about that. I know there are some teachers that are actually creating hands-on materials that they're delivering to children. That's above and beyond, and it's not an expectation that anyone should feel they have to do. But especially when we're talking about our low incidence kids, we know that screen time is not the best thing. And so some folks are trying to find creative ways to get that hands-on material to kids that they can do manipulatives and stuff that doesn't involve just the computer. Again, splitting up work with the gen ed co-teachers. How are you guys, navigating this? And we always are keeping in the back of the mind not to overburden our SPED students. We don't want to give them extra work compared to their gen ed peers. We want to make sure that we are carefully balancing the expectations for them, and working with the whole IEP team, and of course keeping in contact with the families. And the last thing I'll just say is, we know that things like social emotional supports and teaching the whole child, not just the academics, are going to be so important during this time. This was I know we're all doing read alouds and stuff like that. This is one of the read alouds that I put up for our first to third graders in my school, with some social emotional. Oops, I'm not gonna make you guys listen to that though. And we've also been running a lot of Zoom meetings and live meetings with kids, and especially depending on the grade level or ability level of the kids you teach, it's been quite an experience, I'm sure. Kids are kids, and they're gonna do silly, crazy things. So it's been a learning experience for all of us, I'm sure. So we are teaching with creativity, grace, and flexibility, just with that focus on connection. It's not only about those academic skills, it's about keeping in contact with our kids. We know we're in the middle of a crisis. We know that there's trauma. We know that there's, mental health pieces to, the anxiety of all of us going through a global pandemic together. So, and just remembering that none of this is normal. This is my Google Classroom, just so you guys can peek in what I've been doing. And, I've just been putting up kind of optional stuff for the most part, trying not to overburden parents. I know some parents want a lot. Some parents are like, it's too much. I work every day. I'm an essential worker. I can't and that's okay too. So just finding that balance of who needs what and staying in communication. I know some of us do interventions like foundations, and I personally have not been trying to run live lessons with that. I find it's hard to coordinate and get everyone on the same page. And so I've just been putting up pre-recorded lessons with some like follow-up options as the way that I'm handling that. And again, I'm leaving it to families to say, if you want this resource, it's here. Otherwise, you know, that's okay. These are just this is an example of like an assignment I might post. And I make sure that families know it's just optional. I always put up a video of myself explaining it so that kids don't have to read all of this necessarily. They can just listen to my video. And then also some information for parents. So I want to open it up now to you guys and see, you know, what has been working and not working so far in remote learning for your students and your situations, and just any questions that have come up. So I'm going to leave it to you guys.
So you're welcome to pop questions into the chat. You also can utilize the raise your hand function, and I can unmute you if you have something specific you'd like to ask or something you'd like to share.
Okay. Okay, good. I see some questions coming in. Yeah, some people are saying that they are appreciative of the pre-recorded lessons. Again, I think what we're discovering is it's got to be based on what your families and your situations need. I think we all are being flexible around what works for different groups, for different parents, for different classroom settings. And I know from my group, just because everyone is so overwhelmed, it's been helpful just to have them pre-recorded, and you know, if you want to do it at 8 o'clock at night, go ahead. You know, for some families, that's what is working for them. They do a couple hours in the evening. I'm not sure about the webinar classes. If anyone has any ideas about that, I don't know anything about webinar classes. Someone had a question me privately about the grading process. And so I just wanted to go through that. CPS sent out grading guidelines yesterday, saying that for the most part that fourth quarter grades will be on a pass or no credit. So it's not fail, but it's no credit for the most part. And they're saying that you may give out letter grades, but only if it's going to be an improvement from their third quarter grades. And that's mostly for the kids that are looking into things like going to college and need some like actual letter grades on their transcripts, and for kids who you know, maybe you're trying to get into selective enrollment schools. So that's kind of a specific thing. For the most part, it sounds like most kids will be getting a pass, like you get credit or you don't get credit. So, but again, we're not sure what it means to not get credit for a class, especially for our lower grades. I'm hoping that we're not talking about retention for any child. I personally don't believe that retention is the way to go in this situation, except for very, very specific, extreme, like individualized circumstances. But in general, I would say retention is not what we do. Everybody's going through this crisis. I hope that kind of clears up a little bit about the grading, but we kind of also don't know fully what the grading is going to look like. It's still a little bit up in the air. We just got these guidelines yesterday. I am not using the Seesaw application, but I know for the younger grades especially that the Seesaw app has been really, really popular. If there's anybody on this chat who's been using Seesaw and can like add to that question, I think that it seems like a really great tool, especially for younger kids and for kids with maybe lower reading abilities, because you can do a lot of like voice responses and pictures, and it's a little bit easier to navigate than Google Classroom is what I've heard. All right. Okay, so someone was asking about the requirements for these remote learning plans while CTU is still in communication. So right now, what we've been told, Dr. Jones, the head of ODLSS, told us the other day that there is no due date on these remote learning plans. So my recommendation and CTU's recommendation at the moment is that you do not need to jump in and start scheduling every single meeting tomorrow or today, or it does not have to be done. And she kept telling us specifically there is no due date. So it's not like as if that was going to help us to be able to complete 60,000 new IEP meetings. But so I would say that if anyone is asking about them, you simply respond, it's in the works, getting it done. I haven't finished yet, but I'm in the process. We do want to be careful that we're not being overtly insubordinate in any cases. If someone's saying, have you done this directive? But we also want to put a little bit of the onus back onto CPS and the folks that are asking for all of these ridiculous bureaucratic hurdles, and just saying, okay, if help me understand what is the priority right now. I've only got so much time in the day, and what is the priority? Do you want me to do the remote learning plans, or do you want me to hold live sessions with kids today? Do you want me to contact parents, or do you want me to do this? And I think if we can ask that respectfully, politely, professionally, and put the onus back on them and saying, look, we're willing to do work. We're not saying no to work, but we are, what should we be focusing on, since we are not able to do everything, and the amount of work that they're asking is insane. So there's some questions about doing pull out and push in together with 4 hours. Yeah, I think the trick right now is that we have to find that balance, because there's not a lot of time in the day. There's not a lot of time that we're going to be able to directly work with students. So we have to be careful how we split it up. We don't want to be only having the SPED teacher work with the kids with IEPs, especially for kids that are included in the gen ed classes for at least part of the day. We want them to have that gen ed experience and have access to that gen ed experience, and have some time when they're getting that individualized support, whatever it looks like, whether it's pre-recorded, whether it's live lessons, whether it's one-on-one check-ins, which I believe we're all doing at this point. So I think the trick is to be able to split it up in a way that makes sense for your situation without overburdening you as a teacher or the kids and the families. I think erring on the side of less is more, honestly, is what I have been thinking of. Yeah, someone was saying that they had to change the time of their live video because the students are waking up at different times. This is so true. Again, to me, that's another reason to just go with the pre-recorded and have optional live, that are more community building and more just the social aspect, so that if they miss it, they miss it, but it's encouraged, but they're not missing any instruction that way either. So that's how I've dealt with it, but I'm curious to see how other people have done that. Let's see. Yeah, so some people are talking about, I see that Carly is talking about that they've been splitting up co-teacher with her co-teacher. One of us leads the presentation, the other moderates the chat and answers questions. And so this helps. So often Google Meets, I guess you can't see the chat at the same time, or it's hard to see the chat. So that's a really good point, Carly, thank you. And if people do want to speak up, I think we have the raise your hand function. If you want to say something to the chat, that is okay. Melissa here is saying about Epic and Scholastic. Yeah, Epic is fantastic. They've opened it up free for educators through June. And that the read aloud I showed on my presentation, I got through Epic as well. I found that just fantastic. I've also used the Loom app or the Screencastify. There's two different ones that work pretty well, that I can kind of put my face in as a bubble so the kids can still see. Bridget's asking, is it a CPS directive that SPED teachers are required to provide either live or pre-recorded lessons? The directive is that we need to have some kind of interaction with our kids. It does not need to be a live interaction. But there should be something that you're putting up there, whether it's pre-recorded, whether it's you, whether it's like a link to a different type of video that they can watch. So 2 hours of some type, more or less, of some type of interaction that way. I don't know who's monitoring this, honestly, but and then 2 hours of being available for just office hours is what they're saying. It's kind of an unclear directive. So I think if you're showing a good faith effort, like you're putting up videos, you're putting up links, you're communicating with families, you've got all of that, I think you'd be fine. Oh, okay. So Donna was asking about just live, some more information about live, some live meetings. Yeah, I'd love to hear from all of you guys about what's working with the live meetings, because they're tricky. So let us know if you want to speak up. The question Bridget asks about, are teachers supposed to be teaching new concepts or reviewing previously taught materials? We haven't gotten a ton of clear guidance on this one either. At first we were told it just review, and now that we're into this remote learning, they're saying, well, no, you're just continuing with your curriculum, which seems a little bit tough to get done. So I would say it's a case-by-case basis, honestly. What makes sense for your kids? Do you want to just work on, you know, maintaining skills that have already been taught? That can be really important for some kids. For other kids, if they're ready for new concepts, you can go ahead and introduce some things that you think would be successful. I don't think that it's an either or at this point. But I know there's different directives coming out around that too. So let me know what you guys are hearing. Okay, question about, can SPED teachers talk live to their students? This this privacy issue and this issue around one-on-one interactions has been super confusing. We asked Dr. Jones, who's the head of ODLSS, this question directly on Tuesday. Her response to us was, if a parent or another CPS employee is present, you may do video conferencing with a child if there's another third party adult there. We've asked her to send this out in the next FAQ that comes out, so that it's in writing, so that it's very clear. That is what she told us, but I've yet to see that written down somewhere. And with all of the concerns around scandals within CPS, it's very understandable that people are hesitant whether or not we're doing these one-on-ones. Let's see. Oh, we got a lot of stuff on here. Let me see. Yeah, getting handouts to students. You can use email or you can pick up from the school, yes. So you should be able to still, families should still be able to come by schools. Although my understanding is not all the schools are open at this point, that they're not all pickup, but most principals are still going in and can still facilitate that if you're in conversation with your principals. Good, Cassandra's saying retention is not happening for elementary. That is very good to hear. Laura is saying she used CSOM, but they changed the interface and made it more difficult to log in, so that's too bad. Yeah, the login is really tough for our kids, especially younger kids and kids that are not adept at using tech, or that have more significant disabilities. The login issue has been a really huge issue. It really ends up being on the parents and the guardians to get kids logged in or not, and that's a lot for our families in many cases. Ingrid,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have somebody with her hand raised. Her name's Monique. Sure. I'm just going to unmute her. Oh,
hi.
Here she is.
Hello.
Hey.
I just wanted to say that I am a SICA and I work with students with special needs. And what we do is what the teacher does is they invite me in Zoom with their other regular classes and my SPED student that I work with on Mondays and Fridays. And what she does is in her IA, and what we do is everyone is on the Zoom and she discussed to the students what assignments that they are to accomplish, from vocabulary to Study Island or IXL for other assignments like social studies, social science, Freckle. And so she also makes sure that they submit that information to her on the dojo and any assignments. And so whatever assignments is completed, because she has a lesson plan laid out for them. So like, for example, next Monday, they know to pick up their new assignments at the school and work on those paper assignments, especially students who may not have a computer. And right now we have been working really hard and diligently to make sure not only regular students get computers, but also the students of special needs. So me as a SECA, I dojo the parents, make sure that they're okay if the students may have a question with their assignment. And I, like today at 2 o'clock, one of my SPED students that I work with, her regular teacher is going to go on Zoom today at 2 o'clock, and we're going to discuss the assignments that needs to be done. So I like the fact that they keep me focused and involved with the student, and the parents and the students and the IAs. So we're all working together, and that way I, as a seeker, don't feel isolated with those students or make them feel left out. Because when you have a good established relationship with the student, and there may be questions that the students, just feel like, well, Ms. Hudson, she's so used to helping me out with the math or the reading and so forth. So the parents know that they can sit next to, or grandpa or their aunt, whoever's next to them, can go on Zoom together as we all do it. But I mostly do it when the teacher invites me, so that we're all on the same page.
Great. Thank you, Monique. That is super important. We know our paraprofessionals are like a vital piece of all of this, and they are often the ones that have such a strong relationship with our students and their families, and any other ways that people have found to include our SECAs and to utilize their expertise would be great for us to be able to share with one another. I know that my SECAs have been just amazing, reaching out to families, offering any supports that they can. So yeah, that is very, very helpful. Let me see. And again, if you would like to share other ideas, if you want to just go ahead and use the raise your hand function, Sarah can call on you and you can share with the whole group. But I'll keep going. Oh, there's quite a few messages. Okay, let's see if I can get through some of this chat. Yeah, people are asking about doing virtual meets for one-on-one progress monitoring. Again, right now, what we're being told, and we're trying to get specifically in writing, is that you may do one-on-ones, but only when there's another adult present. It must be the guardian or another CPS staff. Okay, and they can be kind of off in the distance, but they need to be in the room. There's questions around continuing that one-on-one Wilson instruction. Yeah, for people that are doing specific intervention curriculum, it can be very frustrating during this remote time. It's hard to do. Like I said, I've been just pre-recording the lessons. It's not ideal. It's not the way the curriculum is designed. The curriculum is designed to be interactive, but I found that it's kind of the best I can do at this point. So I mean, if people have found ways that it's worked really well for you, feel free to share that. I think we're all kind of trying to figure that question out. Someone saying about the remote learning plan has to be done in order to finalize the IEP. I didn't hear that. I don't know. CPS is saying that if you have IEPs already scheduled, if you have a REVA already scheduled, that you would fill out the remote learning plan at the same time. And just to be clear, we're not against the idea of creating remote learning, like having individualized plans that are very clear on like what it is we're trying to do with each child. We're just saying that it's to do this logistically in the next few weeks before school is out is just, it would be just a bureaucratic nightmare, especially if they're requiring us to send out notice of conference to every single parent and hold an additional meeting. And so it's more about the bureaucratic piece of it, not the practical piece. If you find that it's helpful to you to create these plans with parents. That is more than fine. We just don't want it to be a mandate that people are going to be in trouble for when it's something we're not even asking for at this point. Let's see, Marina is saying that she's sending out the weekly work list to students, hyperlinks and editable docs. And sitting in on live lessons with gen ed teachers and holding small groups to answer the questions. And also seeing sixth graders every day for small group. So these are some really great ideas. Some people have been figuring out how to arrange some small group time with kids, and I think if that's something you can arrange, it is very helpful. Small groups specifically for SEL, that's a great idea. Just kind of making sure we're not losing that. And then just responding to our kids as they chat with us. Yeah, and so Aaron was asking about the remote learning plan for every student. Yeah, CPS's new guidance wants us to basically contact the parents and hold them some type of a meeting for every single child in the district that has an IEP and a 504, even if they've already had their annual for this year. So we're talking like 60,000 plus new meetings that would have to get done before the end of the year, and that's silly. Let's see, I think I answered about the Google questions. Putting SPED students together. I haven't heard that this is not allowed. I mean, SPED students are together in our resource rooms. They're together, you know, we've done this before, so I haven't heard that that's a problem. I don't think you have to do a one-on-one check-in if you would like to kind of do groups. I think that's, from what I've heard, is fine. People are talking about some of the different apps they've used. Some people use Nearpod for live instruction, and then reinforce or reteach it using vocabulary and IXL. So using some of those online platforms and online programs that different schools have chosen to use as the way to reinforce instruction that you give. That's a great model too. Let's see. So this is, Eileen is talking about how parents are reporting that they're having difficulty getting their child to do their significantly modified work, and how to provide. So again, when it comes to significantly modified work and kids with, you know, more significant disabilities, I think we approach it with grace and flexibility. There's no one answer to that. It really is something that needs to be worked out with the special educator and the family, and to talk about, you know, what are your capabilities right now? What are your time? How much time do you have available? We don't want to overburden, you know, our students, our families, anybody during this time. Really, the mental health and social emotional state of our kids is our number one priority right now. And the academic piece, while, you know, it's a concern, when we do get back in school, we as educators are prepared to get our kids back on track. So we'll do whatever we have to do when they're back to make up any skills that got lost or any, you know, regression that we see. So I think that really is an individualized, collaborative effort when we're trying to figure out what's going to work. Yeah, there's a question in here about families. Laura put in here about schools. Parents are struggling with navigating all these online platforms. I really, really, really feel for our families that have had to learn all of this technology like overnight, basically, and for our staff members too, right? Like, we're all kind of learning this as we go. So yeah, we're just offering support when we can. I've done a lot of my initial check-ins with families were just like, this is how you get on Google Classroom, and this is how you check email, and this is, you know, all of the different tech pieces. You know, I think a lot of teachers felt like all of a sudden they became just kind of a tech coordinator instead of a teacher for a while there. There's a question about how are you guys getting the IEP goals done? I'd love to hear from other folks on the chat. What are you guys doing around progress monitoring IEP goals? My opinion has always been we will do what we can. When I do a check-in, I might give individualized assignments to kids based on those goals. You know, maybe send them something that they can complete as a quick assessment, but it's not going to be the same as it is in school. And I'm keeping that in mind as we go forward. I know when we were writing our IEP report cards for third quarter, a lot of the times I'd have to say, like, look, this is how far we progressed on it, but we didn't finish. and we're going to keep working on it therefore. So I think, again, that's been a hard one. So I'd love to hear from you guys about how you are doing your progress monitoring and how keeping up with the goals and doing those individualized supports. So definitely raise your hand if you have something to add to that. Let's see. Oh, Lori is asking about access to a list of different apps the teachers are using. I think that's a great idea. I've seen a lot of lists flying around, but I think it might be very helpful for the union maybe to grab all of this stuff and put it in one place if we can. Maybe we can find someone that would be willing to do that work. If there's anyone on this call that would be interested in helping us compile, just contact anyone at the union, your field rep, or especially Lisa Patera McGrain. She's the field rep that does that handles most of the special ed things. So if you want to help us compile something like that for folks, I think it would be something useful. Okay. Yeah, people are talking about inviting another adult if the meeting's alone. Yeah, just be careful not to ever be one-on-one alone in a video chat with a kid. You know, just make sure there's always another adult present. And if that ever happens for whatever reason, just, you know, tell the child, you know what, we're going to reschedule this for another time. Okay, I'll see you later. Yeah, and just, so yeah, that's exactly right. People were talking about that. If anyone wants to talk about how you're doing your pre-recording lessons, I've been using a Chrome extension that you can add for free. It's called Screencastify. There's a pro version and there's a free version. I think the free version only allows you about 5 minutes of recording, but it automatically uploads it to the Google Drive, so that makes it very easy to share with students. But there's actually quite a few other programs out there that you can use to pre-record your lessons. So if other folks have used something that they found very useful, definitely share that. Yeah, some other people put Screencastify in there as well. QuickTime to record a video tutorial, that sounds great too. And yeah, there's a lot of technology out there that you can record the screen and do lessons that way. And if you can get like one of the virtual whiteboards, you can actually manipulate stuff on the screen. Socrative is a great interactive tool. That's great. That was from Michelle. So I haven't seen that one. I'll have to check it out. And Elizabeth's saying that she always invites SICAs to meet sessions, which is great. It's great to use to ask our SICAs to help out with that, because you know they're a great resource and it can just clear up any of the concerns around meeting one-on-one. So if you have paraprofessionals you work with, that's a great way to use them as well. Some people are saying that pairs are meeting one-on-one with parent permission. Yeah, just make sure the guardian is in the room, even if they've given permission. All right. Oh, we got a lot of chats here. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm getting behind. Let me see. And then Sarah, you can jump in if there's stuff that's like coming up that I'm missing, and just let me know if there's anything that you see.
Sure thing, Katie, thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, because there's some questions in here about progress monitoring. So anything that's been helpful for you guys that you've seen, please do share that with us. Elizabeth is talking about a great low incidence PLC that provides great ideas. Okay. Elizabeth, what is the name of that? I don't see it. Okay. Yeah, just someone, Joni is talking about coming from a virtual IEP meeting. I think have a number of us experienced the virtual IEP meeting at this point? I think so. Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. I've been on just a couple so far, and I can't wait to go back to school. When it comes to Q4 IEP report cards, again, I think what's important is just documenting where the kids are, what you were able to do, what you weren't able to do. We're documenting good faith efforts. Like, we attempted this is what we worked on, this is the work that I sent, you know, but we're gonna have the expectation that not all kids are going to meet their benchmarks. They're not all going to meet their goals, and that's okay. We will catch them up when we get back. Again, good faith effort is the name of the game when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, and someone's asking about just small group virtual lessons with multiple students. Yeah, as far as I've heard, that is fine. It's not a confidential, it would be just like pulling a group within your resource room. But if I hear anything different, we'll make sure that gets sent out in the next FAQ. Or we'll try to make CPS send that out. We don't really have control. Okay, some people, Lori is, oh no, I'm sorry. There's some other folks giving some names of different, some different apps they've been using in different programs. So again, if we could find a way to compile all this, I think it'd be really useful for folks. And some people are saying, yeah, that they really can't progress monitor remotely, and that may be true. And if you can't do it, then you just document why you weren't able to. It's okay. That's the nature of what's going on right now, and that's going to be true in some cases. Some people are talking about using their phone. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, we're about a minute or two to our hour. So just a couple of things. First off, I think some question came in about any information you have about other webinars that are touching on the same types of topics that you have spoken about today. I think that would be helpful if you know of any resources there. And then I did just want to mention that we will be compiling all of the resources that were shared in the chat, and we'll include those in the posting to our website that accompanies this presentation and the recording. So just want to make that clear. So if you have any resources though about other webinars or conversations similar to this, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I know that CPS and ODLSS are making a number of webinars. I haven't actually seen any of them yet, so I know that they're putting those out on the Knowledge Center on what am I trying to say? The university, whatever it's called these days. And I know that for CTU, we are going to be holding some more SPED conversations next week, just because there's so much coming out and so much changing information, and we want to make sure everyone has their questions answered and that we have spaces to share. So look out for, we'll hopefully be sending it out via the CTU emails. We'll also be putting it up on social media. So if you are on social media, especially Facebook, do make sure you're on our Facebook page. It's called CTU Special Educators. Here, let me show that right here. So this is just some information for you guys. So make sure you join the CTU Special Educators Facebook page. It is run by our CTU Special Ed Committee, and we try to keep up with questions and, recent job postings, that kind of thing, so people can stay together in community. The Special Ed Task Force, which is the coalition of folks, beyond just the union, it's the parents and advocacy and legal experts and the whole group that was fighting some of the stuff that happened under Claypool, is still trying to meet occasionally. Usually it's the first Tuesday of the month. I'm not sure when the next one will be, whether or not it's going to be next Tuesday, but that is another resource. And this is my personal email. If anyone wants to email me with anything, comments or questions, I'm available also via Facebook. A lot of people have private messaged me via Facebook. I'll try to get back to you. Sometimes I miss them. I will try to get them all, because when it goes into when I'm not friends with you and it goes into the secret place, sometimes I lose them. So I apologize if I've done that. And then we also have a Gmail for our the Special Ed Committee and Task Force. They're kind of overlapping. So it's called savespecialeducation@gmail.com. So if you send us stuff to any of those resources, we will get back to you. And like I said, keep on the lookout for another Zoom call next week through CTU.
Katie, thank you so much for doing this and sharing everything. So incredibly helpful and informative. We're really thankful. And thanks for everyone for joining today. If you have any questions that weren't addressed or ideas you have for future community chats of ours, or anything else you'd like to discuss, please don't hesitate to reach out to our small but mighty CFE staff. We're thankful, so thankful for all that all of you have been doing the past several weeks, and our team continues to be here for you in the days and the weeks to come. We know it's challenging and uncertain, but we're here. So happy Fridays, and we will talk to you all soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.